Sorry. What did he say?
Wait, you said politics? About what?
I'm doing philosophy. I do like a politics and philosophy stream, so I'm gonna like talk some of that. I'll hit you up later though.
What's the stream? I'll come watch it, I guess.
It's DyslexicGamr. Just like this. Yeah. So I'm gonna be off and doing that for a bit. Wait, we still down Fuse, right?
Yeah, I'll just shoot by for like, or I'll play one more game or something.
Yeah, okay. You just play as many games as you want. I'll hit you up if you're still on.
Alright.
Okay. Sweet. Yeah. Here we go. You know my... Or into any of the channels. I'll drag you in. We need these high-octane discussions. There we go. Get rid of all these news. That drive me crazy. There we go.
Hello, hello.
Hey, TheFuZiOnZz. Hello!
How you doing?
Alright. Pretty good. Won that game, which was nice.
That's some
And now
epic
we're gonna
gameplay.
talk some philosophy. Okay. So if I'm correct and not absolutely dumb, realism is the idea that... Wait, here, let me just look this back up. Realist is... Yep, you just pretty much accept the world as it is. There's no good or right inherently. These are like concepts that we make up, right?
I have no idea what that definition of realism is, but it depends which realism you're talking about, because there are like 90 different versions of it, so...
Okay.
In different fields, because there can be like 3 types of moral realism that all can be different things. Depends what you want to talk about. Yeah.
Okay. Let me think. So kind of like, what do you think the best approach to like philosophy is? Or maybe should I just like rant about my best approach?
You can rant about yours. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. The way I see it, to like have any coherent system that doesn't lead to presupposing the issue, you have to base your beliefs either in like just, well, actually, in the true nature of something. So like the true nature of humanity, which is really hard to define. So the best moral system, honestly, probably is something that like just bases what we know off of like past historical events and like what we innately desire as humans. So I kind of go off innate desires of humans because all humans have some sort of innate desire from birth, and I think those desires are pretty much the essence of humanity that we should follow.
Okay. I don't think I disagree. It's just that I don't know if that has anything to do with realism.
Oh, okay.
Because there was a statement you said earlier when you were playing that was
Yep.
that I think you said morals were completely subjective, which is, I don't think I disagree with that statement. It's just that, again, yeah, I think a lot of people tie up things like moral realism with objective morality, which is
Oh yeah,
not that conversation at all.
I guess that's fair. Well, I think like when people try to find like a universal moral system, like I think that's physically impossible.
Yeah, I
or
agree.
like okay. So you think we can only like say this is good for Hitler, this is good for not Hitler, this is good for Gandhi, this is good for this and that, right?
The simplest way that I would describe it is that without humans there would be no morals. There are humans, so there are morals. Simply put. Which would then make them completely subjective, I would say.
Yeah, I'm curious, does it not apply to like other sentient beings like animals or things that...
I wouldn't think so, only because well, we're the only ones, humans are the only ones that have done like moral research that I can come across anyway. I don't think another species of animal has done the same things that we have, well, done anything near to what we have done, like philosophically anyway.
to have something be right or wrong for a being of sentience, do we need the research, or do you think the research gives us some sort of moral stance? Well, you can know what's right and wrong for you, and I see that as the system of pain. Cutting off my finger is wrong because it causes me pain and bad things. It's just bad, right?
I could ask you some questions which could, I think, you'd probably not believe that stance anymore if you wanted to do that.
Okay.
If I said that you could either kill everyone and you'd be in no pain, or you'd have your finger chopped off and everyone would survive, you'd probably chop your finger off, right? And
yeah, but that's... okay. Sorry, give me a second to think about this, because this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So, pain in itself, we intrinsically want to avoid, right? It's a bad thing that happens to us. But sometimes...
I would disagree, yeah, but I would you carry on.
Okay. But sometimes there are actions that are painful, but give us a better outcome. Give us, a better end. So we deal with the pain to get to the better end for our own design and purpose.
Yeah, I'd agree. But I wouldn't say that all pain is bad then, after saying that.
Well, I would think of it as a positive and negative scale. You can have these things that add up to positive. Let's say we have +4 positive of the biological being and -3 for the pain. So the pain is still a negative. It's just we put up with it, if that kind of makes sense. Or are you saying in the broader picture, sometimes pain's necessary?
Sometimes pain is necessary, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Giving birth would be I think reproduction is a good thing, but there obviously is a process that can be very painful that you'd have to go through to reproduce. Well, to conceive a child, sorry, not reproduce itself, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And yeah, what I'm saying is that idea of pain and good and bad for that being would be in animals as well, because they have their own wills and things that they want and not want to happen to them. So that would be
I don't know if a animal can reciprocate morals. That would be my only thing with that. And I think that's kind of important, because I don't know if an animal can't do that sort of thing, I don't know if it can know what good and bad is.
If an animal can't reciprocate morals,
yeah,
it can't know what good and bad is.
Well, yeah,
good and bad may be different for a different organism. So animals might have a much more selfish good and bad. So they only care about their good and their bad, but not about others' good and bad.
They could, but I don't know if they do.
Okay. I see pain as the mechanism in humans that or pain and suffering or negative emotions as the good and bad in humanities, how we generally base these things off of. So I guess I just see I don't think it's some greater moral or reciprocation that decides if something's good or bad for humans. But I would say that I definitely agree with you in that it's okay for humans, or maybe I don't even know at this point, because everything's socially constructed by people, is it if it's actually morally acceptable to kill animals and use them. Because if it's in our biology to kill animals and eat them, then maybe that's okay to do.
Do you think if we have a biological impulse to do something, it makes it morally okay?
Well, I mean, everything is our biological impulse, isn't it? At the end of the day. Isn't it helping people a biological impulse? Or would you say it's some
no, that'd be a moral impulse.
And where do we get our morality?
Well, I don't think... Okay, I wouldn't say that a morality comes from, like, a basis of science. So I don't think that's why it doesn't go back to our biology.
Okay, so where do you think it comes from, then?
Where does morality come from? Well, it comes from people, but I don't think that comes from the processes of people, right? So it would come from individuals in like a ontology sense.
Individuals in an ontology sense? Sorry,
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So,
can you expound?
The difference between me and you would be a distinction I would make in an ontological sense. Just like I would be able to say a descriptive and a normative statement would be a distinction in the same way. It's just another category of things, like a moral claim. It's just another type of statement that can be said.
Wait, so you're saying that it's just another moral claim?
No, I'm saying that morals are just another type of claim.
Yes.
Yeah.
A claim of, like, what's good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where does that claim come from is what we're trying to decide.
Well, the same thing with, like, a descriptive claim, right? So, the same way that we would say a ball is red would be the same way that we'd say that murder is wrong. It's sort of like the same way that we would be able to make that statement. That's where that would come from.
And that comes from humans, right? Generally. Or, like, the claims we know about come from humans.
Well, do you think objects only exist because of humans?
Objects?
Like a ball? Do you think a ball only exists as a ball because a human has called it a ball?
I mean, we know it as a ball only because humans call it as a ball, but it's matter and things in space.
Yeah, same thing. Would matter be like a human dependent?
Like, it would still exist, there just wouldn't be perception from a
Right.
human, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
So, it's the same thing with those types of statements.
So they would exist, but they would... Yeah. Of course, but they have to be based in something, right? Because morality is objective.
I don't agree that morality is objective.
Or subjective, sorry.
Yeah, but okay. The statement of morality being subjective can be taken two ways. You can either say that moral statements like abortion is wrong, is subjective, or you can say the idea of morals is subjective.
Okay.
So I would say one is subjective, one isn't subjective. So I would say saying abortion is wrong would be a subjective statement, but saying morals is subjective, I wouldn't agree with.
Okay, what's the difference between those two? Because
the difference
if they're
between those
if
statements,
it's subjective. Okay.
Yeah, the difference between those statements are that it's the difference between like meta ethics and normative ethics, basically. So one presupposes the other. So morals have to be real. So the idea of morals have to be real before you start talking about abortion. Just like language would have to be real before you start talking.
Okay. Sorry, give me a second to think about that.
Sorry?
So if one thinks that they aren't real, then then you couldn't say any moral statements, even if they're subjective. Or no?
Well, kind of, yeah. Because if we admit that if we both agree that unicorns don't exist, then there's no point in us going into conversations about what color is a unicorn, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be the comparison to that.
Okay, so do we think a different type of morality exists? Because I think it's like purely subjective.
What,
so like
the,
someone could say abortion is wrong, and someone else could say abortion is right, and those people would be like, those statements would be just as meaningful. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but when we talk about realism, though, like going back to what we were saying before, when we talk about moral realism, we're talking about the idea of morals being real. And then if we're talking about what you just said there, like if a statement is right or wrong based on someone's preference to it, that would be like subjectivism. That would be the difference.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that again?
So whether morals themselves, whether the concept of morality is real, would be what moral realism talks about, and what when talking about whether statements of morality can be subjective and objective, that would be talking about subjectivism, objectivism, which are two different questions. So it depends which ones you want to talk about.
Okay, I'm trying to talk about the subjective, like there is morality, but it's like subjective or objective, and that's kind of what we're talking about right now.
Well, I would say I agree with that it is subjective. So yeah, that's why I don't know where, because we keep on talking about some things and I don't know which one we're talking about, because I would agree that two people's conversations about abortion would both be about their subjective thoughts on that. I would agree with that.
Okay, then I feel like we went down a rabbit trail. Let me try to trace it back then. I think the big difference is I don't think there's a need for a ethical. Oh, the difference I think is that you're saying that there's a need for thinking like outside of our biological processes for ethics. Is that what you're kind of getting at earlier?
For ethics. Oh,
yeah. For ethics.
For ethics, no.
For good and wrong. For it.
Oh, no.
Here, give me a quick second to Google. Ethics. Okay, then what's the difference between ethics and morality to you?
Well, it depends on how they're used. So someone can use, like, okay. Ethics is usually like the field of exploring morality, usually. But it can be interchangeable, it can be both ways. Now, you could switch those words and it'd still make the same point, I guess. It depends who you talk to. Most of the time, they are the same thing. And I think for this conversation, they are the same thing, so...
okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry to, like, just go back to this, because I kind of need to retrace all the threads. Why is an animal not a moral object, or objective that feels morals or has its own subjective morality?
Oh, because I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's just I'm unaware if they do or don't.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense then. That you don't know if they are or aren't.
Yeah, I would never say an animal doesn't experience it. Because that would be very ignorant of me to say. So. Yeah.
I guess, like, I heavily base my idea of, like, pain and what's wrong for something I define it by fulfilling one's design, which is like really hard to like get into. But animals have their own design, and they have wants that they want to fulfill, like eating, reproducing. So I would say that they fulfill that requirement to have its own subjective good or wrong.
Would you say a robot has like a moral intuition almost to like conduct a task that it's set to do in code?
Definitely, especially like self-learning AI.
Interesting. I would categorize those things as very different, because I can understand that I have a like a moral intuition to go eat something, like you said earlier. But I think the difference between me and the robot is that I ought to eat for a certain set of reasons, and the robot does or does not. Like it's a very binary task.
I don't know if robots just like intuitively that just do or do not necessarily. Give me a quick second, because I don't know if like binary robots that just like perform a task exactly as ordered have morality, because that's kind of just they don't have a choice or like a self-learning AI to it. I kind of see ourselves as a big brain that like has these. Because if you think about it, like while we were evolving, if you don't have a desire to eat, then you just die. I kind of think of our brains evolving very similar to the way robots evolve, or self-learning robots evolve. They have this want. They know they have a moving path to get to it, and then they get to that want. It's just robots are like created by us, so they're either simpler or have different wants and needs than us.
So you would say that a robot has wants and needs?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. It might not fulfill it. It might not fulfill its needs, but it still has wants.
Interesting. Okay. Would you say that do you think that a robot could commit murder?
I mean, like, theoretically, yes. But are you talking about, like, in a moral sense, or?
Yeah, in a moral sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if a robot, like, malfunctioned, like, dropped a crane on someone, that would be murder, right?
Well, even if it was programmed to do so.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be the robot or the person that coded it would be the one that kills that person?
That kills that person?
Yeah, let's say that the robot murders someone, would it be the person that makes and constructs the robot and codes it to do that, or would it be the robot that murdered the person?
I think it would be both. So we'd blame the robot because it's inherently programmed to kill people, and we don't want the robot that's programmed to kill people. And then we'd blame the programmer because the programmer killed someone, created a being that killed someone. Unless if you did it like on accident or something, then it's like a sad ending.
Okay, I would just say that because the robot doesn't have agency, that it doesn't have it's not at fault for a moral action, because it doesn't. I wouldn't say it exercises moral will to do things. It just does or does not. Like.
Well, I don't think humans have agency. That might be where a disagreement is.
Well, how do you have moral? How do you exercise a moral action then?
Because things are either right or wrong to subjective things.
And those subjective people, how do they decide if it's right or wrong?
Based on their previous actions and their biology.
And what is an action?
The end result of our biological programming and past actions. That's insanely complex that we could never like trace it through them out.
Okay, well, I think okay, I think I have a simpler answer than that. I would just say that an action is something that an agent carries out.
Well, yeah, that's a simple action. That's a simple explanation. But if you don't believe in agents, then you can't have
Well,
that.
depends what you mean by agency, then.
Typically, I'm thinking about an actor that has a choice when it's an agent.
Kind of. In a moral sense, I don't think you need choice. So I'm gonna guess that you like be determinist, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'm very along the same lines as that. So in a moral sense, I don't think there is. I agree that there's no such thing as a choice, but you can still have moral actions without choice. There can still there's still things that happen, irregardless of choice, right? You'd agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I would think that the robot would have just as much moral capability as the person.
Yeah, right, but it doesn't. It doesn't like. It can't reflect on its actions, right? Like a human can.
Probably not unless you have some sort of like reflecting program in there, which we don't have right now. But I don't think reflecting is like inherently something that determines like our morals.
Well, would you say like reflection of that kind would be like an emotional reaction to a result, right?
Well, yeah, but like, what is an emotional reaction? Like, it's like chemicals in our brains, right? So I'd think like the emotional reaction to killing something for the robot would probably be like, well done. Like, how can I do this in the future if it's self-learning AI?
Do you think a robot would adhere to like a moral system?
Whatever it's programmed to. Like the way I see it, if it's like, do you know how like self-learning AIs function?
From like yeah.
You just need a very basic understanding. Yeah, so it has this one task that it wants to do, and it gets points for doing this one task. I see this very much as like dopamine or some sort of benefit that our brain gives us that makes us what we want to do. Our brain's much more complex than this, but that's the way that I see it. So the robot tries to get that done, and when it gets it done, it gets that positive response. So that'd be like the emotion of like happiness or goodness for the robot.
I think I'd agree with everything you just said until you said about the happiness. So I'm right in calling that the number like the fitness numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a fitness number would be something that we could objectively measure, and that would be where I would say that it's a robot would use objective principles to conduct things. So it does and does not do things based on to try and achieve that goal of increasing that fitness number. I don't think there's a moral choice in it doing that. I think it just does.
Well, don't humans just do to get to their end purpose?
Yeah, but there's a step before that. We don't have like a fitness bar like that does. Like in a way we're programmed.
I would say we'd have many fitness bars, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure you'd agree that some people's fitness bars, all of those fitness bars, people decide to care about some of those more than others, and some of them rather than others. Like some people just neglect some of those other bars compared to some other people, right?
Yeah.
I would say
definitely.
a robot doesn't have the choice to do that. I think that's where the difference would be, is that we have the choice to follow these fitness bars where a robot does it.
So if a robot had many fitness bars,
mm-hmm.
and it didn't really know how to achieve all of them, and it had like a limited lifetime, so it could do like infinite learning, and it chose some of those, I just see it as like a more advanced robot with more fitness bars.
Right, but I don't know where the choice comes in. I don't know where a robot would come in and choose to do something. It just progresses towards a certain goal.
Yeah, and I'm saying that's like what humans do. They have their own fitness bars, and they try to get the most of them filled as they can.
Right, okay. So two robots that are programmed to do the the same task are very closely going to do that task the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that two humans the same way wouldn't do the same thing because they those principles. Well, one is valued and one isn't. One thing values it, one thing doesn't.
But we're simplifying it a little bit. Let's say that there's a robot with 1,000 value bars, another robot with 1,000 value bars, and it has these implicit. And its job is. Wait, sorry. Let me think about this for a second. Because like humans don't have a whole bunch of chances to go through life, right? So I'm trying to think how to go through it.
Well, that's actually a very key difference, right? Is that a robot doesn't value that sort of thing, right? That it has a limited lifespan because it doesn't morally weigh that like a human does.
Yeah, of course, but I think that's because it's not programmed into the robot to have that.
I would say it wouldn't be able to because it would be a moral weighing. I don't think a robot could weigh that the same way a human would.
I don't know. So I'm curious if there was a robot that's set up like that was like an exact simulation of a person. Would that person be a person or would that be a robot? And what would be the difference?
If it was an exact sort of replica to a human,
copy.
Yeah, I would say it's a human.
We upload my brain.
Because there would be a difference between them, right?
Yeah, it would be a virtual carbon copy.
Yeah. I don't know if that's possible, but...
Yeah. Well, I don't know either.
I would almost argue and say it's not because of things like moral weighings and like that. Things like that. Because I think where I go down to it is that a robot would use that like fitness bar as that's just one example of one of those objective principles that it would use to carry out tasks. And I don't know if morale or morals or ethics like that could be a principle that could be plugged into a robot when us humans, well, I mean, between us anyway, we both agree that morality is subjective. So I don't know if it could be plugged into a robot the same way, like a fitness bar could.
Well, I think the fitness bar is morality to an extent. That's why we value certain things.
Oh, well, I don't know if I can... Well, it sounds like if you're arguing that morality would be a fitness bar, then morality would be objective. Because if you can measure it, then it would be objective. But I don't think you could measure morality.
Well, it'd be subjective, just different. It'd be subjective because it can vary between different beings.
Right, so if it's a fitness bar, and it's different for every person, it's not an objective bar. So I don't know if it means anything to the robot.
Well, he wants to get it done, and that's what's right and wrong for the robot, right?
Right, yeah, but again, my problem would be that its understanding of right or wrong would take, like, objective ethics to do so.
But it would take objective ethics to do so?
Yeah, because it would be one of those fitness bars. And I don't think it can be one of those fitness bars because I don't think it's objective.
Oh, okay. I think we're using the word objective a little bit differently.
Verifiable.
I think we can find the objective right and wrong for certain beings.
Oh. No, I would disagree. I'd love to know how you would come to that conclusion.
Well, we'd figure out what the bars would be, and then we'd measure that.
Wait, can we do that with humans?
I think maybe like someday in the future where we have like a theoretical device.
So you think morality could be objective?
For certain beings. For, like, individual beings, yes.
Well, if it's objective for certain beings, how is it objective?
Well, we're talking about two different objectives. I think we can figure out what an individual's being, what's good for that individual being is.
Right, I would call that subjective.
Yep. And that's what, and I'm saying we can measure that subjectivity. Right? We can figure out
okay.
the subjectivity? Yeah. So that wouldn't be objective.
So
right?
Anything subjective can be objective.
By going by a different definition, I guess so, yes.
So what is subjective then?
What is subjective?
Yeah. You kind of
it changes depending on... It changes depending on person to person. Or being to being.
So if you can... Would you say that if when you measure that, it would only be objective relative to that person, though, right?
Definitely. 100%.
Right, I would still call that subjective.
Yeah, me too. You're the one that called it objective.
Well, kind of.
Yeah. Is there a better word?
I'm a bit confused because I feel like earlier you just kind of said that we can measure a subject's level of certain things objectively. Yeah. So you can measure subjective things objectively, which kind of isn't like an oxymoron to itself.
Oh, yeah. Well, like when you use the word objective, we're using it for different things at different times, different ways, right?
Well, I'm using it the way you just defined it.
Okay, objective morality is that we can figure out one morality for everything. Subjective morality is saying that there's morality for every single thing individually, and it depends on case by case. What I'm saying is we can objectively measure those case by cases, but morality as a whole isn't objective.
How would you... Okay. Let me think about that.
Okay.
So you could objectively measure, like, someone's morality on a case-by-case basis, right?
Yep.
How would you go about that?
Like I said, theoretically, we could find this person's bars of wants or bars of needs, and then we could figure out what would be the best for that being.
Have you ever heard the concept of utils inside of utilitarianism?
Utils?
Yeah.
I've heard it. I need to update in the brain. Utils. Wait, is it the measurement for something?
Well, I would say it would, in my opinion, it would be an attempt to a measure. Yeah, it sounds like that's what you're trying to describe. Is like that a certain action would provide a certain amount of utils for doing that action.
Yeah, for individual.
That's how you'd measure
for individual people.
How you measure one action from another. So, me eating one sandwich would give me 5 utils, but eating 2 sandwiches gives me 10. So, if I care about utils, I should be eating 2 sandwiches rather than 1, right?
Yeah. I mean, there could be like more things that they could be getting like utils for.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, essentially.
I don't know if I agree with the idea of utils, because I don't know if you can put numbers on a completely subjective field like that. I don't know how you would even begin to start measuring that. That's why I kept on asking, how would you go about that? Because I have no idea what that process would look like.
Well, I try to like base it off of like machine learning, so that's why I keep like bringing it back to like the robot is because we can figure out what the robot wants because we program what it wants. And it wants this thing. So that's the thing that we measure it by. Like, what does it do to get to its goals? It might get a lot more complicated when there's like many goals involved. But that's a basic idea, simplified.
Okay. I think I'm just very doubtful that I'm very doubtful of this idea of that a robot has this concept of morality. It's very unknown to me.
Well, it may not have the concept of morality, but it knows what's right and wrong for its purpose.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know about that. Yeah, I've never come across that idea before.
Okay.
Because I don't think
That's
like,
fair.
well, I don't know if you'd equate a computer to a robot, but I wouldn't expect a computer to think it's right for it to push a certain signal through a USB cable to then do something. I would just say it does it or it doesn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the difference between it being a normative action and a descriptive action.
Yeah. And I guess that might be because there isn't a want from a computer typically.
Yeah,
like it doesn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there is a normative drive for a robot.
But in self-learning AI, there are. Right?
I would disagree. I would just say there are descriptive actions of which you can do or do not. Like, I don't know if a self-learning AI generates ought statements. Because from my understanding, it literally, like, a premise of it doing it would be an if-then statement, right? It isn't an ought statement. It just says if I want to do this, I should do this. Not
but
I ought to do this.
Isn't an if-then statement kind of an ought statement?
No.
Or no? Okay, then what's this if-then statement?
There'd be a descriptive statement. So.
Okay. So. I see the if-then as a descriptive statement too. Like, if this person comes up behind me, then I turn around. Right?
Yeah. But there isn't like an ought to do so there, right? You don't ought to turn around. You would just turn around. That's the difference between like an if-then in a computer sense and an if-then in like a human sense, right? So I would say, you could say for yourself that if there's a person behind me, I could turn around. I ought to turn around at that point to address them because it's polite or whatever. But a robot wouldn't do that same thing. It would just be, if this happens, I have to do this. Like, it has no choice to do otherwise.
Yeah. But I don't think humans really have a choice either.
Not in like the choices, like, okay, so a moral choice being like not the same as like a choice in like that determinist sense. So how can I explain that? I don't know how to
because,
find
like,
the words, but the
yeah,
way
I
that
think
I would envision it is that a choice within like a determinist framework isn't the same as like a choice that you'd have in a moral framework. So in a moral framework, you would say that a choice that you'd have would be well, depending on who you are and what you believe, a choice that you would make would be something that you would do based on a principle. So if I have a principle that I like dogs, I'm going to pet the dog. If I see the dog, I ought to pet the dog. but that's not a choice as in, like, the free will to then exercise that action. It's not, doesn't mean it like that. It would just be like the conclusion of statements. I think that's the simplest way to put it.
And that's not an if-then?
That would be an if-then in a kind of way.
Like, the way that I see it is, like, our moral kind of actions and words. Oh, wait, I may have just lost it, sorry. Oh, I had a perfect explanation earlier. Are determinist in nature. So, like when we say, I think, like I should turn around, but I'm not going to, we're not going to fulfill another bar, if that makes sense, in our like morality bars of good and bad. Because it causes me like more pleasure or more.
Right, okay. Well, this kind of sounds like you don't even believe that morals are real then, because if we don't have a choice, then we can't exercise like.
Yeah, morals are deterministic too.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of sounds like you're saying that morals aren't real, and that would be the realist conversation, not the subjectivist conversation.
Well, they are real. They're just like a concept of like what we want, if that makes sense. Like what's right and wrong is what we want is right and wrong, if that makes sense.
Well, oh yeah, well, right, yeah, as okay, right and wrong, only because if we do get deep into the conversation, it's kind of important to differentiate. So things like good and bad come after establishing whether morals are real. Because that would be a normative ethics concept, good and bad.
Yeah,
that's what a framework like that would do. Like a normative framework.
What right and wrong is, though?
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, typically when people say something is good, that means that it's right, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that concepts of right and wrong are a concept in normative ethics, not meta ethics. Like you have to, like I said earlier, you have to say that morals are real for you to be able to make statements about good and bad first. And from what you said earlier, it sounded like you said because determinism is true, then morals aren't real.
No, they are real. It's just that we have certain moral inclinations, and we're and it's inevitable that we have those.
So, what do you think an art statement is?
I think it's like our theoretical desire to have other people do certain actions or ourselves.
And a desire isn't a choice.
No, it's our programmed bar getting fulfilled.
It does. Okay. To tell you what's on my mind, it doesn't sound like we're talking about ethics at all anymore. I don't know what it means to it's very confusing. That I don't know what I don't know what you mean by programmed almost at this point, because how can I put this?
Well, fulfilling our design.
Yeah,
Can I put it that way?
Oh, well,
yeah.
Well, okay. Well, that puts me closer to where I thought we were going. Okay, so do you think that we can have like normative statements without talking about ourselves?
What do you mean by normative statements?
So, alt statements.
Stop talking about ourselves? I mean, if we're talking about a different system, maybe.
Well, can you think of any statements you could make, any alt statements you could make without talking about one person or any people?
Well, I'm just going to do it to an animal then. the dog ought not be tortured, or for the dog, in the dog's eye. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Because it's bad subjectively for the dog. But that might not be what you like.
Yeah, because that would still be a statement that you would make within normative ethics, right? So, okay, what I'm trying to gauge is when we want to talk. Well, I say we. I haven't read, but maybe. Anyway,
Yeah, I've like completely made this moral system like myself too, so it's very understandable if it's like confusing and if it isn't even correct.
Okay. From my understanding, well, I would have a position, and this is why I mentioned the realism stuff, the anti-realism stuff, is because the main conversation I like to have when talking about philosophy is a position of epistemic anti-realism.
Epistemic anti-realism, can you...
So that would be the position that there is no such thing as believing anything. There is no way you can justify having beliefs in anything. It's a very extreme position that
yeah.
Some people have. I don't know if you've heard of Wired Guitars. He has this position. Cynthia has this position. There's a few people that have this position that I like to battle with a lot because it's in my favorite field of philosophy. So, and I think it's a really bad position to have because it's very contradictory. It says, I have a belief that there is no such thing as beliefs. So it's quite contradictory within itself, and that's why I try and argue against it. But the second part of that conversation, after you accept my argument for that, would be moral realism, and that you would have to have things like normative statements. You have to believe that there are such things as normative statements. But when talking about this sort of conversation, both of those types of conversations, we as humans don't exist yet. Like the idea of self doesn't exist yet. This is like very fundamental groundwork before we start talking about ontology and normative ethics. So when saying some things you said earlier, like I think morals are a biological like function, was very problematic because well, at least I do anyway, believe that there are such things as normative statements before there are people. So I don't think normative positions have any basis on biology.
Won't that make it objective though? Because that would mean like there's a universal truth.
It would make it would make normative statements the idea of normative statements objective, that they would exist, but it wouldn't make every normative statement said objective. Just like I agree that there is a concept of morality, but it doesn't mean every moral statement is true or objective, sorry.
Okay, I guess that's where we disagree. I don't think that there can be morality without a system that is right or wrong too.
Well, okay. I can explain some of the problems with that if you'd like. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'd love that. I love having my system tested, so.
Okay, so the some fundamental problems with that type of system is that when you get down to justifying things like ontology, which is where you start to exist, where the self starts to exist, you have no basis to justify that position. Like it's kind of starts there, but doesn't have any backing behind that. Like you would almost argue, if you were to go into it, that nothing exists without me, sort of.
No. Can't I say like the dog is good or has it good or bad for the dog?
Well, does the dog exist without you?
I mean, yes, I just can't make any statements about it because I'm dead.
Well, okay, when... yeah, it does sound like that's a problem. But when we talk about those fundamental things, we're not talking about your opinion on it. We're kind of talking about it as in like a kind of like we're spectating. We're an observer to that situation rather. So it's not kind of like your opinion on it. It's kind of stating the fact of the matter of the situation. So we kind of do this when we make descriptive statements. So when we say a car is red, it has no relation to us whether the car is red. We kind of look at it like a spectator above it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we kind of have that sort of when you talk about that, that's the kind of way we talk about that. It could be very annoying to talk about it like that, but it's kind of required.
Well, that's how I talk about the dog, though, right? Or are you saying I can't do that?
You can't do that with normative statements. In the normative statements you've been saying, like you ought not to kick the dog because it's bad to kick the dog.
For the dog. But you can kick the dog if it's good to kick the dog for you.
Okay. Would you say that you could kick the ball? Would you if we replace the dog with the ball and obviously without saying the second bit? I forget what you said.
You're lagging out.
Oh yeah, you're lagging out too.
Should we swap? Should I just call you?
You can.
Here. Let me just try this.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, there we go.
Okay. Can you repeat what you just said about the ball?
So if we subbed out... Okay. When I brought up the example of the car earlier, we're kind of talking about the idea of morals in the same sense of the car, rather than like a moral being, I guess. Right? So the normative statement about the dog would be something that requires you first, but a statement about the car or a ball wouldn't. Because there's no moral prescription to that. Okay.
Precisely. Cars can't have morals.
Let me go back to where I was. I forgot where I was. Yeah, how would you justify you being a thing and not being someone else? Like, how would you justify that sort of thing?
What do you mean by justify? Like morally, or just like physically, or? Well,
not morally, because we're talking about ontology now. We haven't established normative ethics yet.
Okay, I am a being that was birthed and have been ingrained with these certain principles in my mind. By my biological and by my experience that has shaped me to be the way I am. Because I am a human and that's how our functions work.
Okay. Okay. When I ask the question, I don't mean in like, where did you like physically come from? I mean sort of like the this is really hard to put into words, so you have to give me a minute. Have you ever heard of the idea of self?
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that term?
In which way? Sorry.
So, well, in an ontological way. Do you know anything about ontology at all?
I forget the names of absolutely everything, so...
That's okay.
So I've probably heard about it. Yeah, I've heard about it. Haven't looked into it that much.
Not many people do. I don't either. But anyway, so yeah, like it says there, the nature of being. So for you to be, you have to have, well, our theory on it could be, for you to be, you would have to, you have to have an identity, or you have to be able to separate yourself from the many. So there's a concept called the distinguishing between the few and the many. that sort of idea to make you stand out from someone else or a group of other people? What makes sort of your idea of you compared to, I guess, everyone else, or the idea of everyone else? Or it could get really nitpicky because there could be questions like, what is one, in the sense of like one person rather than obviously the number. So it could be very complicated. I don't know much ontology, but the premise of the whole point is that usually an ontology is usually backed up into some sort of meta-ethics, and then usually backed up into some epistemology. So you have to have a normative and descriptive like basis before you to be able to make statements. Basically, is the conversation.
Okay, so can you just give me, like, in layman's words, in 2 words, what I need? Or no, sorry.
Let's think about that.
Because I might say something really dumb in a second if I don't know that.
It's not an easy conversation to just to have. So I wouldn't expect you to like just pick it all up first time. I don't expect anyone to, because it's not. Okay. I don't fully understand it myself. I'll always say that I'm not an expert. I'm expressing from my understanding of what I know. I'm not saying this is like the best. The solution to everything, but it's from what my understanding is anyway. So yeah.
So I would say that, like, I'm not special in nature. Like, I am just like everyone else. Or did I just miss something and grab onto something entirely different?
Have you ever heard? Here's an example. Okay, have you ever heard of Descartes?
Yep, I think therefore I know.
So that was Descartes' answer to his ontology, is that he had absolute skepticism about everything. Didn't know whether he could believe anything. He was in that position of being had a belief that he didn't know how to believe anything, because he doesn't know if it's actually real. He doesn't have certainty about anything.
Yep.
And the way that he got out of it was that he said, well, I experienced this phenomenon of that I'm able to think, so I must be something because of that. And that was where that statement came from, that I think, therefore I am.
Yep.
Would you agree with that statement?
Not essentially. The way I think of that kind of problem is, if I approach the problem anyway, except that this is my existence, it leads to absurdity. So if I just live my life in this system, if the system doesn't exist at all, it doesn't change the way I'm going to act. So I act as this system is real, even if it is not.
Okay. It's actually, that touches on my argument before. I just think I think the starting point is, well, actually, with that statement you said, even if the system isn't real, you do it anyway, right?
Yep.
Okay, so my thing would be talking about what the system is. So, Descartes would say the system starts with him. Is that because he can think, and he is that everything, he can interpret that. It goes through his experience.
Okay, this could be interesting, but I'm just going to say, like, if I don't care about, like, what the system is, and if it isn't even real, I'll act the same, then why would I?
Well, because the system.
Why would that really matter to me?
Because the system portrays everything.
Is?
Yeah, what it is.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it is what I see it as. Right? It is my observations, it is my feel, it is my touch.
So you would say it's not things that you don't see?
As
a counterfactual to that.
Not things that I can't intuit. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I think about the system, and what makes sense in the system is my life, and is how I will act, because if I don't act that way, then it will just be absurdity, and I won't do anything, and it won't be good for me or society. If I'm always perceiving something, even if it isn't real, and it's torture, then why would I want that torture?
Okay. I understand the thought process. Okay, so the thing to do with your experience, right? So, would you say there could be anything before experience?
Anything before experience?
Like, could there be any system before that? Oh, well, I wouldn't say could there. Do you say that there is or there isn't? I would say.
Like, for myself? Like, for myself?
Yes. Maybe yes.
For myself, I don't think so. I think that the world I observe is probably the real world, because I observe it and I have to act in a way that it is real to have a good life.
So it's not bound on your experience then, right?
No, I don't know. It could be theoretically, but I'm going to act as it is, not bound on my experience.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Right, yeah. Okay, so my problem with that is that that it sort of gets in a long reason. You kind of brought it up before, actually, that if I don't believe this way, then it devolves into absurdity. I would say that is that's a victim of, well, not that's your system is subject to that same problem. Is that because you kind of, I don't know the right words to say it, but sort of like accept that system. You have other problems that result to the same thing. Like, okay,
well, what are the problems?
Okay, so from my system, I would say that I'm not a center point to philosophy, let's say. I would say that there are things that are before experience. Like descriptive statements and normative statements, as in the idea of them, not specific statements about them. So I'm able to have a basis where I can accept, like, that epistemology is real from that, because, well, it's absurd to think otherwise. I would say that's the problem. So if, like I said earlier, if we do that absurd, like the spectator sort of view on it, we're talking about philosophy before we exist. So for philosophy to be real, well, actually, let's take it this way. So if we're talking about philosophy before we exist, and then we take the idea of what Descartes says, he says that everything spans from his experience. So the problem with that is that things like epistemology doesn't exist without him.
Yeah, but I don't agree with that statement, right?
Well, it comes across as if you do and don't. I know you said you don't, but
yeah,
it comes across as if you do in a way, kind of. But even if you don't agree with him, it has the same. I mean, I'm trying to use it as an example, to illustrate my point. Anyway, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but I feel like it doesn't apply to my point, and that's the problem I'm running into.
Well,
if I think of the world just as the world it is, because I have to do that, then...
Yeah, that's where I would disagree. You don't have to do that. You do that.
Okay.
It happens, whether you like it or not. There isn't there isn't a choice to do so. It happens that way. That's why I would say that position there
is flawed.
Well, no, I would just say that it's actually quite impossible to devolve into absurdity there, because you don't have a choice to do that. It happens. So there isn't another option to do so. So what I would say, my position is, from, I guess, start to finish, would be that there are things before experience, or a priori, I don't know if you've ever heard that before, that are sort of necessary to start making statements about me and morals and science.
Okay.
That would be the...
agree with that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think you would... you don't have to say the statement of, like, I have to believe this sort of thing, because, well, you don't have a choice whether... well, two things. You don't believe reality, and two, you don't have a choice of believing reality. That would be my two statements to that.
That I don't believe in reality?
Well, you don't have to consciously believe that reality is real. It is. It's sort of whether... You, like I said, you don't have the choice to choose whether reality is real. It just is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be the difference.
Like, yeah, like that's what I assume. I just...
No. You don't have to assume it. It is.
It just is?
It just is.
I don't know if I can do that, though.
Well, you do.
Like, I feel like I have to assume it.
Well, if... The problem is...
If it's assumed, then it's real, right?
No, because there are things you don't assume that are real.
Okay, so it's real. It's real. Yep.
Yeah. That's the statement I would be looking for, is that it just is real.
Yeah, sorry. It's just like in a metaphysical discussion where people are like, "Oh, you don't even know if it's real." That's how I get around it. Is I say I have to think of it as real.
Yeah.
For there to be any semblance.
That is a common objection. Is that people the people I said earlier, both when I have conversations with them, will say things like, when I'm talking about reality in this way, remember I'm talking about the observer reality sort of thing. We don't exist yet, but when you exist, you can have a solipsistic position on reality and affirm the position we've just talked about. So you can have a position whether I don't know whether reality is real in a objective sense. So whether the reality I'm experiencing is the same reality everyone else is experiencing. See, that's a key factor in solipsism, is that I don't know whether I'm experiencing things, and what we were talking about doesn't talk about people.
Okay.
So you can have the position we just talked about and be a solipsist. I think that's the position I hold to.
Oh, okay. So we hold the same position, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
I think we ran it down the line.
Yeah, I don't remember how we got here, because this was... I feel like this was really important for some reason. I don't remember why.
We were talking about robots a lot.
That's true. Where were we for that? Principle, the fitness bars. I'll remember it in a second. I'll remember it in a second. Oh, come on. Where were we? Okay, so we spoke about the robots. I said, I don't think they can have morality. Then I said, I don't remember what we got here. There's a massive hole.
It didn't feel like a hole to me.
Oh, I'm just, there's a big gap between our conversation. I don't...
Oh, yeah. That's called my memory. that just disappears.
We spoke about the robots and then we got into realism, and I forget how we got there. Normative ethics. Oh, the difference between meta and normative ethics. So...
Yep.
the position of where normative statements exist would be so meta-ethics would be a field that you'd have before you.
Okay.
And
normative would be
after you, yeah.
Oh, so then I believe in meta-ethics because it doesn't matter if it's before or after. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't believe in meta-ethics. It's there. It's very hard to put that into words, but because it sounds really Weasley, that it's like you almost don't justify it, but it's
there. Yeah,
it's such a foundational position because things like justification are an epistemic theory that come again before you. So theories of justification, there are different theories of justification of which you can sift through, but this is, again, before you've experienced anything. You'd have to have these theories to then be able to talk about whether solipsism is real, because you'd have to justify whether solipsism is real. So, there you go.
Okay.
And that's my favorite topic. There you go.
That's your favorite topic? We've got it. We've solved it. Okay.
I'm very glad this conversation went the way I wanted it to, because a lot of people don't like that position because I don't know.
I think it makes sense to me. Wait, is there something that I'm missing that I should change my mind on, or do you disagree? And just disagree about the competence of robots and other animals?
Still forgetting the relation it had to the robots, but
the robots are a moral object because they have wants or they want to fulfill a bar.
Yes. That's the parallel. The robot would be the observer in that same sense.
Yes,
precisely. So it doesn't have normative ethics. So that's where I would say the difference is that it just doesn't like things are and aren't in the normative words that normative statements exist are or aren't. They are just there, just like the way that the robot would process things is like I do it or don't do it, rather than it would ought to do it. I don't think it would ought to do it because it would require,
from the observable,
because it would require making its own theory of self. It would have to create an identity for itself, things like that. Yeah.
Yep.
There we go. I remember now.
Right. Wait, what do I disagree with? I feel like I should disagree with, but I feel like we're agreeing.
Oh, that I don't think robots can make ought statements.
Oh. Yeah, they can't. They can just have something be right or wrong for it, but it can't make the statement.
No. Because the conclusion after you would say about right and wrong statements would be that you'd ought to do it or not, right? So something that is right to do would be something that you ought to do, and something that is wrong to do, something you ought not to do. So I don't think a robot can make good and bad statements. I don't think it would make value statements like that.
But if everything just does it...
Well, I don't think it does. That's what I mean. It's because it doesn't have a theory of self.
Okay. But in the same zone, I don't really think that we have a theory of self.
Well, do you know who you are?
Yeah.
Can you distinguish yourself from other people?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You have a theory of self.
But I don't think that's important in morality, I guess.
Well, morality being subjective to people, right? If something that you ought to do and ought not to do is based on people, then you'd have to figure out what people are first, right?
If you're basing it on people, the morality of people, then I'd agree. But that's the very specific type of morality.
Well, I don't know if there can be other moralities. That's what I said earlier, right? I don't know if dogs can have morality. I don't know if that's real or not. I don't know.
Well, I think it would. Well, I think they do, because I try to break it down to the wants, and I think the wants are what make us moral actors or moral objects. I don't even think we're actors, just objects of morality.
Do you think... Okay, I'll ask you two questions. Do you think people can reciprocate morals?
If they have the same morals, I guess. Like, what do you mean by that?
They don't have to have the same morals. They can just... Like, I can...
Respect the morals?
Well, me and you can talk about morals, right? We could talk about whether abortion is right or wrong. We can reciprocate what morals are to each other, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Can you do that with a dog?
No.
Do you think that's important?
Yeah, probably. And that's why I think it's like okay to kill dogs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait, but
But I think they still have moralities.
Oh, okay.
They're just not competent enough to express it.
So how do you know
kind of
they
like
have
others?
moralities?
Well, because they have wants and needs. They like eating. They eat.
Well, I would say that they're like the robot. They do and don't. Because that's the only thing that they've shown to do.
Well, like humans do and don't too.
Right, but we can ought and not. And I can demonstrate that we can ought and not. I can't do that with a dog.
Well, we can express our oughts and oughts and oughts.
Well, yeah, but I don't think a dog can do that. That's what the difference between us dogs
Yeah,
and
but
robots.
Yeah, that's the difference between us, but I still think dogs and robots have morality.
That's what I mean. I don't know what that means because of those reasons.
The oughts and you don't know what that means?
I would be able to. I think I'm confidently able to say that humans have morality, even if it's subjective or objective, because we can reciprocate morals to each other. I don't know if a dog has morality because I'm unable to reciprocate that with a dog, the same as I wouldn't be able to do with a robot.
Well, like, the way I see it is, like, if you start skinning a dog, the dog's going to be like, I don't like this. It's going to, like, scream at you and display things that are pretty obvious that they don't like it. Unless you want to argue, like, maybe they do like it, and, like, that's wrong for the dog, because the dog doesn't want to be skinned.
Do you think a plant wants to be watered? Because if not, it dies.
Think about that. Yeah, because if not, it dies. Yes. Yeah, I would say a plant wants to get watered. It does things to get water more effectively, and it does things to get water. It like grows its roots in certain ways. It has negative reactions if it doesn't get water. That maybe kicks in some backup systems. Yeah, I would say yes.
So you think plants have its own morality?
Yeah.
Do you think a rock has morality?
I don't know if a rock is a system. So I don't think a rock can have morality unless we like set it up in some system ahead.
I'll do it this way. Do you think a car has morality?
The car doesn't have any wants though.
Well,
it isn't trying to achieve anything without outside input of a person. So maybe a car plus a person has a morality.
Well, I would say that about the plant and the dog.
But yeah, but the plant is acting for interest without an outside actor.
Right, but we want the plants to be alive. That's why we water them.
Well, yeah, but a plant in nature tries to get water.
Yeah, it does that. I don't think it ought to do that.
But it still tries. Like, I don't really care about the ought.
Well,
the plant's too dumb to express its ought.
I would say a want would be an ought. So I want to do, I want to eat would be my desire to eat. I don't know if a plant wants water because it needs water. I think it
can't we see
takes
it like
water.
Can't it do actions like growing its
I think it does actions,
finds out
yeah.
in certain places.
I
Yeah,
don't think
to get water.
wants to do actions.
Okay, then why aren't the actions just random? Why does it do actions to get water?
Well, something you'd say earlier, that they're programmed to do so. That's just how evolution's turned up to be.
Yeah, and I would say that the humans are the same way, just a more complicated system. And that's a want of the plant.
Right, but I can express odd statements. A plant, I don't think a plant can.
Yeah, and I think that's why typically we don't respect plants' wishes and we eat them. I don't think there's something special about expressing our wants.
Okay, so what would... Okay, is there a moral difference between a human, a plant, and a dog?
I prefer the human, but not inherently.
Wait, why?
Because I'm human and I like other humans. Because that's what, as a human, I ought to do.
So you like humans
but not
because
like...
you're humans?
Yep. Precisely.
So do you think a plant likes plants because it is a plant?
I don't think a plant has that integrated in it. But maybe a dog, maybe a cat, maybe a lion. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you think a dog does? Okay.
Maybe a dog likes dogs. I don't know. It depends on the system. I can only really know my system.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I don't know why I would describe that they have morals. Because I'm not a dog, I'm not a plant, I'm not a car.
Well, they just have, like, dog morals. We have people morals.
Well, I don't know if that exists. I don't know if there are... I can only explain morals in context of people. I don't know if you can explain morals in context of dogs, because I'm not a dog. It could be possible that they have their own moral system, that's why I said I don't know, but yeah. I would never be able to definitively say that they do, because I'm not a dog. But I'm able to with other humans, that's why I can say humans do.
I think the issue we're running into here is I just think, like, morality just comes down to, like, our like, innate wants, and I think other beings have wants.
Okay, when you say our wants, who's our?
People's wants. They can vary between people, but...
Yeah, I agree, between people, yeah, but you extend that to dogs.
Yeah, because I'm sure dogs don't want to be skinned alive.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I just assume that because their actions, generally. Their body language. You're right, that is an assumption, but...
No, I just asked why you would assume that, yeah.
Yeah, because, like, typically, like, they seek that thing, so I would assume that that system wants that thing. Just like a human system would want love from other humans.
Well, I would never... Because I could extend that assumption to things like rocks, right? I could assume that they have moral wants, and I could never throw a rock and break it ever again, right?
Well, how do you assume it has a want, though?
Well, that's my problem, because I can only contextualize wants in regards of people.
But we can observe actions from plants and animals and take those actions.
I don't know if they're wants. I can only describe them as things that happen.
And what's typically behind an action?
Sorry?
What's typically behind an action?
Cause. Another action, probably.
Yeah. I think it's an action, or a want. Sorry. In a roundabout way. We might not be able to perceive that want in human terms, but it's definitely a want.
So if a rock falls down a hill, because of humans and the way they process things, that rock wanted to fall down a hill.
If it does it on its own will. If a rock starts rolling down the hill, magically, yes. But if something else acts on it, no. We look at what the system does to see its want.
So if wind blows on it, it doesn't want to fall down the hill.
Nope.
So, but in that scenario, would
It's not
the rock
expressing
be a
any wants.
slave to that action?
I mean, in that scenario, we'd have no idea to see the rock's want, and therefore we'd assume that the rock has no wants.
I agree. That's why I don't ascribe wants to
To rocks.
people.
Yeah, but when there's a plant, the plant grows its frickin'
Right, yeah.
vines towards water. Yeah.
I observe the wind blowing the rock, and that's the thing that happens. I observe the plant using water, and that's another thing that happens. I don't think these are want actions. I just think these are happens. These
plant is going for the water, like all by itself. It doesn't have some other system acting on it that makes it do that.
Well, it has a biological system that acts on that.
It doesn't. Well, humans do too.
Right, but I'm able to reciprocate the human one between another human. I'm not able to do that with a plant.
Yeah, but you can observe what they do, and then...
I can observe what they do, but not what they want.
Well, you observe that people are talking, but you don't know if that's their true want. Right? This is just a different way of communicating. What if I understand a plant that grows out to water, but it wants water?
Wait, how have you decided it wants water, though?
Because if a human were to always kill animals, I probably would guess that that human would want food. And ate the animal.
It's because a human would do the same. Because a human would do that in the same scenario that makes the plant want to do.
Because I think any being does things that they want to do by nature. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Right?
I can only say that about humans, though.
Well, and I'm saying I do it by observation instead of words of their wants.
How do you distinguish between a do and a want?
A do and a want?
Yeah.
I think they're very similar. I mean, a do can maybe affect a non-sentient thing. A want is probably a lot of do's not acted upon, or is a do that's not acted upon.
So the way that I would describe that would be a do is a descriptive, something that happens and is a fact of the matter.
Yep.
And a want would be an ought that uses those do's to come and to create an ought statement.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm able to observe humans use is statements to make ought statements, but I'm unable to observe plants making is statements and ought statements. So I don't. That's why I say I don't know.
Oh, okay. And I guess I guess like in a way like I can't absolutely 100% prove it. But
yeah, that's my
maybe just from
maybe
from the world maybe the way I observe the world just thinks that there's like communication beyond just like pure verbal communication. Like we can observe things and what they do. Because you could just say humans just do say these words that make it seem like we reciprocate. Couldn't you say that? Or would that not work for some reason? It seems to lead to the same place to me.
No, because that would be going back to the observer concept, right? Is that there are normative statements before people.
Yeah.
So, and those normative statements are just the same as the ones that humans make in a different topic, like abortion.
What I'm asking is like, what's the difference between like a dog crying when it gets skinned and a person saying, "Ow, that hurt! Don't do that to me."
One I can
Like,
understand,
could
one
the
I
person... Okay, I think I can understand the dog.
can't.
Crying out when it's getting shit. Like, that might just be the difference.
So what would it... okay, what could you read of a dog that says it doesn't want that to happen?
When it cries.
Okay, I can cry, and I could want something.
Yeah, you could. Typically, you don't. You could also lie to me. You could say you don't want a chocolate chip cookie, but you could want one.
So how do you know if the dog's lying or not?
How do you know if the person's lying or not? You don't.
Well, I have inductive reasoning. That I can use things that the human says and does.
Yeah.
And I can communicate with that person, not like I can do with the dog, though.
So you can inductively reason that the dog, like you, has a nervous system and doesn't like to be skinned alive, and that's bad for the dog.
Well, I could say that about the human, though, right?
Yeah. I'm saying that they're the same.
So
you're saying that
you would throw out if they are lying or not, then, because of that same reasoning you had with the dog.
Yeah.
So,
like,
but
we have to guess.
I come to a more accurate conclusion than you do.
Yeah, probably more accurate. Yeah, on average, definitely.
Well, isn't that a problem?
I mean, not really if it's all guesswork to an extent. It just depends on the extent of the guesswork.
I don't know how I would accept characterizing it as guesswork, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. That's because there's always uncertainty with everything, right?
Is there uncertainty about uncertainty?
Yeah.
Are you certain about that?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, so there is uncertainty.
By the definition. Yeah.
So you're certain that there is uncertainty?
Yeah, but I assume things that are very likely.
Wait, do you not see a problem with saying, I'm certain that there is uncertainty?
I do, but I'm just going to go back to my argument in deontology where I say everything, or when I say if I doubt everything, then like I just have to like see what's in front of my eyes and assume what I see.
Well, no, I'm just saying my problem with that statement is if there's uncertainty about everything and you're certain about that, well then...
Yeah. Okay, I'm uncertain about it, okay? Everything could be the way it sees, okay?
Wait, what? Say that again?
Okay, I am uncertain if everything is uncertain. Are you happy then?
I'm uncertain.
I think that there is.
Sorry, let me say that to myself. I'm uncertain that there... Say that one more time? I forgot what it was. Sorry.
I am uncertain that everything is uncertain. Does that make you happy?
Is that statement true?
Yeah.
Are you certain about that?
Has to be. I'm pretty close to certain. 99% chance.
Well, it doesn't seem like, if you're not 100% certain, then it doesn't seem like you're certain.
I guess I'm not.
Well, then I don't know how. Okay.
Oh, this is hurting my brain.
The problem with the statement is that it like how to put it.
Like I can't be 100% certain that I know what people want via their words. Like I
agree with that, but I would never say that I'm certain about uncertainty. Or I don't think I'd ever make a statement about uncertainty because
well, you're making a statement about that you're uncertain. Oh my goodness, we're using this word too much. That we know what the dogs want. I'm saying that possibility still exists with humans.
Okay.
And then we went down the road of uncertainties for uncertain.
The problem with uncertainty stuff, right, is that as soon as you start to ask that question, you start to make statements, right? So, if someone said everything is uncertain, that statement is subject to that statement, right? So, if everything is uncertain, then it might be uncertain that everything is uncertain.
Yeah,
So
which is like
it gets
true to extent,
absurd.
but you can't live to that. Yeah, it gets absurd.
Right.
I agree.
So the opposite of everything being uncertain is that there is certainty. And that's very coherent compared to everything is uncertain. So everything is either I've forgotten the word. Certain. Everything
True
is certain.
or false?
Yeah, it's either true that everything is there is certainty, or it's true that there isn't certainty. And I would say that there is certainty, because if you say there's uncertainty, then you're uncertain if there is uncertainty. And
I'm saying that the idea that dogs and humans have this, I believe that we can pretty much tell that dogs and humans have certain wants by their observable actions. And that I wouldn't be unsure about a dog one's. I would just assume that he wants what the dog is doing and showing that it wants.
Yeah, I have the problem. My problem is with the assumption.
Okay, then why is there assumption that humans do? Like, the disconnects against language? Like,
no, because there isn't an assumption between human to human. I'm certain that you experience ethics the same way I do, because you are a human and I'm a human, and we can talk about ethics. We're not able to have a conversation with dogs.
Yeah, but we can still infer from their actions, right? Or do you not believe that?
I mean, we can infer, but I'm able to deduce from humans.
Okay.
And I can't do that with a dog.
I mean, like I said, people could lie about their wants.
Right, we can tell if they're lying.
How?
Well, we have lie detectors.
That are uncertain 100% time, or are they 100% now?
Well, from my understanding, lie detectors are as good as the fact that they give like a rating to how bad you lied.
Oh, okay.
So you can have a certain amount of points that you get given a rating when you do a detector result, and you have to be over a certain bar to be told if you're lying or not. That's from my understanding. So I don't know.
I guess. Here, let me think about this for a second. Okay, I guess that we know for 100% that humans have wants. I kind of just...
Yeah.
I don't know, to me it seems absurd that we'd assume that animals don't have wants.
No, because I'm not assuming that. I'm not saying that they don't. I just don't know if they do. I also don't know if they don't. I'm not saying that they do. That's the difference.
Okay, I think it's absurd to not assume that animals have wants.
Why?
Because animals are organisms that are very like us, and that if we break it down into a system, like I have, it's very clear to see what the animal desires to do.
Deductively or inductively?
I think deductively by animals, inductively by like plants and computers.
Wait, so you deductively know that animals have morals?
Have wants, and wants for morals, so yes.
Oh. How do you explain that? I thought you assumed that earlier.
Well, because animals have a brain very similar like ours, right?
Right.
Therefore, if we're using the same operating system, and they have certain actions, the chance of them not having wants would be astronomically small, right?
So that's a probabilistic claim, right?
Yep.
So that would be inductive.
Okay. I guess it's inductive then. Is there a problem with that?
Well, no, it's just that all I'm saying is I would never deductively be able to say that animals do. And I think you agree with that. Is that I don't know what reasoning I would use to say that there's an inductive. If there was an inductive argument to say that they do, I don't know what use is that when it's not deductive. Like, it's famously said that the problem with induction is that it's not deduction, which is true, obviously, but obviously I'm not saying that it's completely invalid because of that. I'm just saying I don't know what use is an inductive argument like that.
Well, my moral system would.
Right, but you'd be using that to make other deductive statements, right?
Yeah.
So you have the
an inductive.
You have a deductive, like, foundation of what morals is and whether morals are real, and then we have an inductive premise of whether animals have morals, of which then you make deductive statements from it.
Yeah.
I have the same deductive foundation of morals are real, and a deductive stance that says I don't know.
Okay, I'm curious. If you don't know, then what do you do? Because the way I see it is that there's a high probability that they do. So are you just going to ignore that high possibility? Well, just say that they don't, or what are you going to do?
I would only make conclusions deductively.
Well, my conclusion at the end would be an inductive one, right?
At the end might be, yeah, but you'd be making... That's a piece of your moral system, right? Of which you then make moral choices from. And that would be a factor within it, of which would be an inductive basis. I don't have that inductive basis. I have a deductive one.
Okay. And are you saying deductive is better than inductive? And that I should listen to your deductive? I mean, like, I guess yours probably has, like, the most certain truths. If we can truly, like, figure out if a person is lying, and that then we, I guess, like, get the most truth statements, but we're missing out on a large piece of the population of morals.
Well, not under my system, because the population only includes people. So...
Well, yeah, I think you're making, like, a bad assumption, though. Like, if you don't know...
I'm not assuming anything, though. You are.
Yeah. Okay, so what should we do with these beings that we don't know, but there's a high probability that they do?
The same thing we do with things we know that don't. Because they haven't met a bar of which we should consider them. Consider them, sorry. Like other humans. They haven't passed that bar yet. Just like I would be able to do whatever I want with a rock, I should do the same with a dog.
Because you don't know, but there's a high probability that it does have a moral?
They're not confirmed to be of willing of consideration like other humans are. They haven't passed the bar.
But the humans may have not passed a bar to the dog.
I have no idea what that means, so... because I'm not a dog.
Okay, so then the dog should just be able to, like, kill you if it wants, right?
No.
Why not?
Because I pass a moral bar and the dog doesn't.
Wait. I think this is where we're getting separated again. I don't care if you're able to, like, see morality. I don't care about that. I care if you have wants or things that you desire.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's where the bar is. I don't think
Okay.
they have wants and desires because they don't pass the bar of being able to have morality, just like people can.
Oh, I think those are two completely different bars.
How so?
Wait, having wants, or wait, no, I think those are the same bar, but I think you're getting them confused. I think pain in itself is a sign of a system and of having badness happen to you.
No, you disagree with that. Because we can...
That it's a sign?
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's
okay.
a sign. Yes, you can have
But
things
it can
that
also be
outweigh
a
that
sign
sign.
of yeah,
but it has that sign.
It could be a sign of a reverse, though, right?
Of the reverse of what?
Yeah, that you could be really happy to be in pain because of the...
Yeah, it could, but that's still a feeling.
I agree. So I don't know...
And that's like still a want. Or a diswant,
I don't know what it
right?
means to have a sign then, because it's a sign of something's happening, but I wouldn't say it's good or bad for having that sign.
You don't know, though, but you know it's doing something. So you know it has some sort of morality.
What? You think pain has morality?
Yeah, and pain is inherently bad, but it can be outweighed by some good, right?
No, I think pain happens and then we value that.
Oh, I think pain in itself is bad. Like, if you could go to war and not die and not feel any pain and feel amazing, that would be good. Opposed to if you went to war and you died and you felt a lot of pain, that would be bad. Or worse.
But if you could go through pain to chop your finger off to save 7 billion people, that would be good. So you'd experience something bad, but it would overall be good. Opposed to not chopping the finger off and everyone dying.
Yeah, and everyone living, that would be good, right? Like, if you have any sorts of pain, there's some sort of morality behind it. Because if there isn't anything behind it, then it's just bad. If there's something behind it, then there's something good. If there's pain, there's something there.
Hey, I agree, but
we don't know if it's
I would
bad
never
or
say
good.
it's good or bad. That's something yet.
Yeah, but we could say that thing has some sort of good or bad.
No, I would never say that.
Why not?
Because
I
I
thought
don't
we
think
disagreed if there was pain, there was something good or bad.
Just because there is pain doesn't mean it's good or bad.
Yeah. Okay, what's something that has pain that isn't good or bad?
Something that has pain
Like
that
for a
isn't
human.
good or bad.
Yeah.
Does it have to be pain of the human? Oh wait, no.
Yeah, because you assume otherwise. Yeah, so it has to.
Ask the question again.
Can you give an example of pain being neither good nor bad?
Pain itself?
Yep.
No, because I would never say pain is good or bad.
Okay, I would claim that pain is bad by itself.
Well, okay. Well, I would say...
Well, you have to have something outbalancing the pain for it to be good, right?
No.
So pain in itself is bad.
No, because I don't think anything is intrinsically anything.
Okay, and I believe pain is intrinsically bad, and for the human, dopamine is innately good. That would be my claim.
Okay, if you were blind...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that doesn't really matter. Okay, well... Right, is the situation where you get your finger chopped off to save everyone, is that good or bad?
Probably good. Everyone would love me.
Because the good outweighs the bad, right?
Yep.
How do you come to that conclusion? How do you come to the... I understand. I agree with your conclusion, but for the wrong reason.
Okay.
I would just say that is that way because I value certain things more than others. Simpler. Well, no, actually, no. Well, I would just say
the value would be in
is
terms
good.
of.
I would just say that because the outcome is good. That's what I would say.
Oh, okay. I would be very similar to the value thing, except I would say the value is the dopamine and and the other bad stuff. However the brain works. It's insanely complicated reactions that happens in the brain.
How many fingers would it... well, if you had unlimited fingers, how many fingers would it take to not save all those people? Okay, rather than asking how many would it be, would there be such a point where if you had that many fingers, would there be a line where you would say, I wouldn't do it now because there's too much pain?
It depends on the person. Some people are extremely altruistic. Some people are pretty egoist. Me,
would there be a line?
Probably after I'm cutting off fingers like for a full day straight, that'd probably be my line.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I could take that much pain. But that's just me personally. Like, other people would have a very different line.
Oh. That's an interesting reason. See, I would never use what I'm practically able to do as a reason to why something is good or bad. I would only associate if it's good or bad according to my normative ethics system. So,
oh, okay. I don't really craft a system. It's just like what's good or bad for the, I guess, for the system. But like if you just make a system, that system's extremely arbitrary.
Well, yeah, it's subjective. That's what morals is.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's why I base more off of like an egoist, like it's me kind of idea.
Yeah, I used to be an egoist.
I'm like 50-50 right now.
So, okay. So, okay, here's a good test. So, oh no, I think I know you're. I was going to ask, that line that you'd have. I would argue it should be the same for everyone.
Or like inherently different systems and people.
Well, I would say there is, because of a logical reason, there is a line between how much pain should be endured and the lives of every person in humanity, I guess, in that scenario.
Oh, okay. I guess like the way I see it is like every person is their own system and they're like self-interested. So some people's systems may be vastly different to where they value human life exponentially more than other people's.
I would
so
agree
I think
that
it would
happens. I would absolutely agree that happens. I would say that's a wrong process though, because
okay,
there
what
is
process would you
like
advocate for them?
Oh, that's a big conversation. First of all, I'd have to argue like a normative ethics system. Which one is the better system? Like,
we can hang this up to you if you want. Should we like hang this up and like have it for another day?
It's up to you. I've got all the time in the world.
Like, write some notes. I actually kind of want to hang out with some people that I haven't seen in like a year or so.
That's fine. Absolutely, yeah. We can do this whenever you want.
Sweet. I'll probably be chilling around tomorrow, so I'll hit you up or you can hit me up.
Okie dokie.
Thanks for doing this. I love philosophy, so...
Yes, there's not many people on Twitch that love philosophy, and yes.
It's so good, though. It's like the truth of the universe.
Yeah. You've heard of synth, right? The Synthiad.
Is that a book?
No,
or a Twitch streamer?
Person. They're a Twitch streamer.
Okay, I've heard their name in my brain before.
Me and them used to do a philosophy podcast for a bit.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of died off because no one was really interested and no one turned up. So I'm trying to find people that are quite interested, and yeah, I'm trying to have more conversations.
I would do that anytime. I'll have those discussions anytime. I love politics and philosophy. So.
Okay.
And most of the time, I base my politic discussions off of philosophy. So,
well, I would say that's the right way to do it. Yeah.
So yeah, chopping off fingers. I'm just taking some notes so we can like read this off and try to remember next time. Yeah, chopping off fingers. Robots.
I think where we are right now is that I think we would talk about normative ethics.
Norm.
Talking about
That's a big
like,
field.
Yeah. Well, I just mean like the I guess like the start point of it would be like utilitarianism v deontology versus virtue ethics versus stuff like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That would be like I guess our conversation. Because I think you said you were a deontologist, so I haven't done my reading on that actually.
I'm a utilitarianist.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like egoist in a subjective way, where like I measure everyone's morality, then try to come up with a realist, cooperative system that we can exist in. Oh, that was a
interesting.
long words. Yeah, that's basically how my system is, and I'm amazed that I actually said that comprehensibly. Yeah, so just like write down some notes. I'll write down some notes, and we can see if we can pick it up at this spot again.
Yeah, okay, dude. Anytime.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks for having this discussion. See you later.
Dude. See you later. This guy's pretty good, okay? Yep. Thanks, dude. See you later.
Bye. But I think about this stuff a lot, so maybe I'm a budget philosopher.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Like, follow, subscribe, do all the things. Thanks. Bye.